Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. Got another video for today. This one is coming from the test server. This is the Silent School Alert, a part of the Atlantis DLC. Basically, I'll be going through this video, giving my impressions of it. Also, I'm going to go back to game audio and just kind of talk again during the boss fights, just so I can explain what's going on, stuff like that. So I'm not talking for the entire duration of the video. So if you hear me go back to game audio, it's just that once you get forward towards the boss fight, then I'll start talking again, rather than kind of bugging you guys for the full 22 minutes. At the end, I'm gonna have comments in the comment section as well, or not comments, but links basically. At the end, there's some bonus footage, just a few of the puzzle rooms that we did. So essentially, this alert, it's fun and interesting at the same time. It's a nice little twist on the alert. Think of it more like the Fatal Exams, where there's different puzzle rooms that you have to do to progress, and you're going to get different variations each time you do it. So there's not always like the same 4 puzzle rooms. I think there's probably 5 or 6 different puzzle rooms. There's also a whole bunch of feats tied to this alert because of those puzzle rooms. So basically, there's feats associated with a lot of the rooms. So it's going to be a whole bunch of feats tied to this alert. But essentially, the only underlying issue with this alert is that the room mechanics and the puzzles and stuff you have to do for the boss fights, you don't really have to do them. Like, you can largely ignore them and just do a typical, like, tank and spank. Not even a tank, where I've run with tank, I've run without a tank. You don't really need a tank for this run. You could do a typical healer and 3 DPS setup. Obviously, if your DPS aren't comfortable taking damage, not that there's a lot of damage to take on this alert, but if he's not comfortable, kiting damage or surviving, then yeah, you'll want a tank. But at the same time, I don't feel like you really needed it. So that's my underlying issue. Like, the alert looks like really cool. The visuals are nice. It's new. It's not just like a copy and paste from previous alerts. The only issue is that the mechanics don't really force you to use them. You can just largely ignore and just keep DPSing through it. Like, the only time you would need to use the mechanics is if you're going for the feats. And then once you have the feats, you can just go back to a typical, like, tank spank. So that's kind of a shame. I understand it, and obviously that could change because it's just a test server, so they could do a difficulty pass or something like that. But at the moment, the mechanics are more just there for like a novelty, and you don't really need to focus on them. It's just focusing on damage, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, it's pretty much like Fatal Exams in terms of the puzzles, and once you do them, it's quite interesting, honestly. It's not a bad alert, that's for sure. I would say I would have more fun doing this alert than I would the Teen Titans alert. Teen Titans alert got really boring really quickly, and this one, at least is interesting. It's a nice change of pace. So what I'll do is I'll jump back to the game audio, and then we'll pick this up again at the boss fight for you guys to for me to explain what's going on.
The eyes of Gemini see all. Only those who possess true mastery can blind them. You stand no chance. How proud you must feel to have reached my outer sanctum, but in the end you will fail. A crown of thorns is ancient in origin, and it defends those it serves.
Anal Nathrak, Uthvas Bethud, Ducio Denve.
By darkest water, by Sula's horns, unleash the guardian of the crown of thorns.
By darkest water, by Sula's horns, unleash the guardian of the crown of thorns.
So as you can see, the boss fight for this alert, the first one, is the spring warrior style, or whatever that spring sprite style was from the vendor. But yeah, not too much to know about this boss fight. It's basically just, kill him basically. He goes through these different phases where he'll be immune to damage and you have to kill these tentacles on the outside. But really, there's not any huge risk. I think there was mention that there's a feat associated with this, and it's not to get hit by his skull attack. So that one you're going to need a tank for, because obviously if you're running with 3 DPS and heal like we were, he's going to be focused on 1 DPS the whole time anyway, so it's going to be like really almost impossible to avoid that skull attack even if you're range. But obviously once you get that feat, you don't need it. Really the only other thing to note is there's a lot of annoying pushback in this fight, so if you're a melee DPS like I was here, just be prepared that it's going to be pretty annoying sometimes. He does a lot of ground pounds. You'll see a lot of moves knock me all the way back, and then I've got to lunge back in continuously. It gets really frustrating. But besides that, there's really no mechanics per se here. It's just basically you're defeating the thorn vines that spawn, you're defeating the ads that come up. Then once you defeat them, I think there's 4 or 5 spread around. Could be 4. But yeah, once you do that, it goes back to the boss, and that's it. He has some ground pound moves, a skull attack. So I think if you're not, I think you're definitely going to need a healer. There's enough damage where you're going to probably need a healer for this alert. Like you can't run like a tank and 3 DPS. I don't think that'd be as successful. As you can see, there's a lot of pushback, a lot of like splash damage taken. So, but really, it's just an issue for melee DPS. You could stay max range and be completely fine. But yeah, this fight, there's really no mechanics. It's just straight, just kill them and burn them.
You must have had better teamwork than we did. King Shark got us busted before we could even complete the first room. The Faceless one took King Shark to his inner sanctum. He's going to sacrifice him to the deep gods. King Shark isn't exactly a team player, but I don't want him to get hurt either. You go for the trident, and I'll deliver this crystal from the Thorn Golem to Mira. It may come in handy.
Insolent surface dwellers, you meddle in matters beyond your comprehension. Your king is dead. Now prepare to join him as you face powers that predate all known mythology.
Okay, so now we get to the final boss, the Faceless one. This fight is the one I was talking about in the beginning, where it's got a whole bunch of mechanics associated with the fight, as you can see with these artifacts and sigils along the edges. But at the same time, you can largely just ignore them and just continue the fight. Obviously, the sigils are there to help speed up the fight and help things be less annoying, like there's mind control phases, stuff like that. But at the same time, you could just focus on killing him and just ignore them and be completely fine as well. Obviously, there's feats tied to using them, stuff like that, but honestly, it's one of those fights where it seems like there's a lot going on, but at the same time, there's not. But I'll let you know at least what they are. So the Dead King's Sword, which you'll see with that green aura, basically summons an ad until someone sacrifices themselves on the blade, so basically going up and turning the cog on it. And that's basically, it reduces you to 1% health, so it's possible to not die with the right support, and then it despawns all the ads that summon it. So basically, a lot of these artifacts are tied to like hurting the group or reducing power, or sacrificing health, stuff like that to progress through the fight. The skull artifact, which is the same thing from the artifact, the skull of Triton, I think it is. That's the one that does the mind control that you have to button mash through. So basically, you've got a choice. You can make it the mind control 15 seconds. Right now, it's set at 30 seconds. 15 seconds if you succeed. So you have to pull yourself over to the sigil or help get over there to the sigil. Then someone's got to help drag you over there when you're controlled. And then if they start attacking it, then you can reduce their time by half or turn the cog, basically. So basically, you've got to destroy the skull way you near it to be able to reduce the time to half, or you just let it run the entire 30-second duration. The Shield of Life, that's one of the ones on the right-hand side. That's got to do with summoning hidden spirits. Those ones, I don't really remember seeing those. Hidden spirits of Silent School, they can be destroyed without revealing them, but it can also be revealed if someone uses the Sigil of Sight. This unhides currently spawned ghosts and unhides any others that spawn while this phase is active. Shield can be deactivated if 4 people give up a portion of their health, or 1 or more, just to do it multiple times until a total of 4 times have been accomplished. This is the first time someone does it. They can't do it again for a short time, but someone else can to encourage teamwork. So basically, this is the one that's going to heal the boss. So it's going to heal him every 10 seconds. So this is the one that's like semi-annoying, but at the same time, we largely ignored it and just kind of... If you've got the damage to burn through his health, then you can largely just ignore it. If you can't, then you're going to have to go through that phase. Skull of Banishment. This purges anyone that has that Dead King's Curse. The Sigil of Summoning. It's going to trigger at some point for players to summon Guardians to help them turn on the Master. There's a feat for that one. So basically, a lot of these sigils and a lot of these mechanics are tied to feats where if you have got the burn, you can just largely ignore it. Like, think of the Teen Titans alert, where if you have the damage, you could ignore those side rooms and didn't have to worry about his shields or anything like that. You just kept DPSing Cyborg. So that's essentially the alert. It's fun and interesting. I wish there's a bit more emphasis on the mechanics, like you can't progress through... Like Fatal Exams, if you screw up that final one with those lasers, like you can't actually progress through the alert. Like you physically have to do those mechanics correctly to be able to, drop their shields and DPS them. I wish there was that much emphasis put on these ones, but that's how it is, guys. This is the alert. Silent School.
Trespass in the domain of Earth, the fourth sign of the Zodiac. Your fate is sealed.
By the ancient sign of Cancer and its enchanted moonstone jewel, I summon its protector and curse you, insipid fools! Where once there was one, now form 3. No! Stop that! Get away! No! You mustn't destroy it! Curse that noise! Stop! Stop! You'll never find the correct sacrificial abattoir to place the moonstone in. My mirror image spell will stop you! You've chosen poorly. You've chosen poorly.